everybody, welcome. My name is Jenna and we are at Alchemy of Movement today doing an Alchemy of Movement interview series. And today it's my pleasure to interview Julia. Julia has been teaching SoulSweat here at Alchemy. She is going to be talking a little bit with us today about why choreography. There's a lot of choreography in SoulSweat. I mean, that's like the main, there's like different, like the way that it's different than other forms of dance, but each teacher creates their own choreography, so it's really unique in that way.
Yeah, and what I hear a lot when I'm telling people that have never done it before is I don't do choreography.
Oh.
Which is what makes me think about why choreography is like, I love to dance, but I don't do choreography.
What does that mean? What do you mean?
Meaning, like, I don't want to come in and learn an exact way to dance.
Oh,
I love to dance, and the freedom that I have in my dance is
what
I want. Why would I want to go in and learn something rigid?
Right.
And so then I think, well, why choreography? I've been thinking about it a lot since I've been teaching, and I love to dance on my own, and I can totally get down and be really free. But I've been dancing in this studio for maybe 12 years and have found so much more freedom in my dance outside of here through choreography in here.
So the choreography itself is giving you some kind of a base or structure that you're able to find a sense of this freedom.
I keep thinking about this idea of once you sort of narrow down the options and say, this is what we're doing in this class. We're going through this certain choreography. It's going to be the choreography. And the other thing I've been thinking about is how choreography is like a language. And so when I'm teaching, my language is the choreography I've made up and I'm showing it to people. And it's not so much that the end result is I want them to learn how to look like me or dance like me, or that I'm teaching them how to dance. I think they already know how to dance. But if I tighten it up and say, we're gonna dance like this today for this next hour, you know, while we're taking it here to the side and to the side, by making it smaller, you now have, what can I do in just that space?
Right.
How can I be me in just that space? We're all going to the right and then to the left, but I wanna do it like this. Or I want to do a shimmy to the left.
Right.
And so you start to find that freedom because the options are tightened.
It's so interesting because they talk about this a little bit in a school program I'm in, that there's something about the structure, like the tightness of the structure that allows for this like boundless creativity. It's a little bit like that.
That's what I think. Right. Or it's like, you know, you have a totally blank slate. You're going to give a speech. Jenna, you can give a speech on anything you want. What do I give a speech about?
Right.
There's so many options, or
it's
what should it be?
Much.
And then it's like, okay, here's some things. It needs to be 5 minutes, and I want it to be about body work or something, whatever.
Right.
And now you're like, okay.
And you can find
it's only 5 minutes, so I have to have it. I want to get these things down in 5 minutes, and it has to be about body work. So, you know, so you start narrowing it down, and then you can explode.
Yeah. Do you notice that in your students that like each person, their like own essence is kind of coming through the same move, but like in really different ways?
That's my goal. I mean, that's what I hope to teach.
Yeah.
Is that let me show you some choreography and then find your own place in it. Find your own freedom. And for some people, they need to go, every dancer's different. Some dancers, they want to follow what I'm doing. Their first goal is let me get it exactly how Julia's doing it.
Yeah.
And then I can say, okay, you're doing what I'm doing. How can you make it yours?
Right.
And then other people approach it and they're like, okay, I got the gist. She's kind of doing this and this, but I'm going to do it my way.
Right.
And then everybody in between. But my ultimate goal is, how can it be yours?
You know, one piece that we talk about that can be a limit of joy, because I've felt it in my own dance, is the relationship with the mirror, in particular.
For sure.
And how the thoughts about yourself or your judgments or your comparisons to other people or comparisons to the teacher, how those can at times, or even your comparisons to, like, there's so many beautiful people at this dance studio. Like, you look around, you're like, wow, that person really has this essence that I'd love to, like, exemplify. But it can turn into shame, I think, and criticism. And
easily,
I just wonder if you have any recommendation of how to really work with that as a student.
Yeah, I think, and also sometimes it doesn't even go down the lane. Sometimes it just becomes you can't stop thinking about it. It's not even that you're shaming yourself. You just keep looking around instead of just having your own dance, right?
Yeah.
So I think I find with students that, and as a student here for a long time myself, there's usually most people group at the two ends of the spectrum, which is either all I want to do is look at myself in the mirror, and how do I look when I do this, and how do I look when I do that, or which is fine and great, or the other end, which is I will not look at myself in the mirror. I might have to glance to see what the teacher's doing, depending on where I am in the room, or I'll try to just look at her directly, but my head's going to be down. Like I'm dancing through everything with my head like this, which really isn't good for your neck, first of all. But also, I try to just some basic things I do with choreography is cueing people to look where they're going, follow their eyes as their hands move, look where they're going. If we're inching across the left, look to the left. When we look, when we come across the center of the room, to open up our hearts, to look above the mirror, look to the sky, as many times as I can cue people to get their eyes off the mirror, because without even having to think about it, the less you look at it, it doesn't bring up those thoughts, and you can get more into your dance. And it also helps with body movement. If you're not, your body's here, but you're still looking at yourself in the mirror, you're doing this weird little crank in your neck. And then I also do the other side, which is look at yourself in the mirror. Make a face on this one. While we walk up and down 4 times, play with it. What's your face while we do this? What silly thing are you doing? Or as you shimmy, what do you look like? So like really playing with the 2 extremes to get people out of their boxes on one end or the other. And again, when you can play with something, I feel like that's that direct access to joy.
Yeah, I think that's so true.
One of many paths, but one that's easier for me.
One of the things that I've also noticed is like my relationship to community has changed over time too. And I don't know if you can speak at all to just the joy of being around, or even there becomes a time, I mean, in my own dance, I suddenly notice, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can look over and start to recognize people and see the way that they're embodying themselves. And I get this like vicarious joy somehow that will happen. And it's like a feedback loop of like, oh my gosh, there's Nancy and she's just doing that. Or there's, Cherie and she's got this. And it's like, there's something that happens that's almost like where it goes from like, what do they say? Like parallel play to like playing with others. Like you do really recognize yourself as part of this bigger thing that's happening here. Could you say anything to that?
A teacher, I don't know, way back in the studio a long time ago, used to always, one of her cues she always does would be, when we're doing some sort of free dance or making something our own, she would be like, copy someone in the room. So look around and do what they're doing. And that being a cue to get more creative. And that, learning that from her was so huge, because it did start me looking around the room more. One other piece that I've been talking about in my classes, and I've just been messing around with in my head, and I'm sure someone has written about all this stuff, but I don't want to go and see what they've written quite yet. I still am playing with my own head. Yes, exactly, my own scientist, is that there is this similarity, or that the choreography is like a language, and it's just one of the ways to access more in your dance. There's so many ways. With thinking about choreography as language, and say we were learning Spanish or something, and we're around all Spanish speakers, or we're in Spain, or we're in another Latin country speaking Spanish, we only know a couple words, and so we can only communicate so much. So we're so happy to be there, we are so into the people, and we've got a couple words, and that's like as far as we can get. We've got some hands gestures, and then we start learning the vocabulary, and then we start learning how to put those sentences together, and then we start learning the nuances, the how to roll your R's, and the clicks, and the different hand gestures meaning different things, and the stuff you definitely shouldn't do, and then this freedom opens up, and we hit this first layer of like, oh my gosh, I can communicate with all these people. I can go to the store and ask for what I want for dinner. I can go out and just talk about whatever and be social. And so we get like this little tease of like, oh my gosh, this is expanding, this freedom, and now I have freedom here. And then we want more. We want to learn more vocab. We want to know more sentences. We want to know more nuances. We want to take in what people are doing. And the same thing with choreography here is the more of the vocab you learn, the more of the sentences of how to put different choreography together opens up this freedom in your dance. All these new avenues of ways that you can do choreography you're learning here and then expand it. I just learned this new movement, but I want to do it like this. And I never had done either of those things before.
That's so, and I think this is another piece I have around that, another question I have is, I wonder then how to, because there are some people, we talked a little bit, that will just latch onto you as a teacher and watch your every movement. And I'm wondering, like, what are some advice to you might be able to offer a newer student who comes in and is just really focused so much on their mind and doing it right, to be able to start to maybe more gracefully learn the nuances of the language, or to find that freedom, or maybe just knowing it's possible is enough. I mean, I think it's a natural progression. I know for me it was a natural progression, but I wonder if there's anything else you can offer people.
I mean, I think as a teacher, you just have to keep bringing it to top of mind, and people can only hear what they can hear. So if they're still dead set on, I gotta get this footwork, I gotta get the footwork, and maybe they're doing that for a month or for 2 months, but every class at some point in some different creative way, you're tapping into trying to break them out of that,
Mm-hmm.
they're picking up on it, or the other students are picking up on it, or 2 months later they pick up on it. It's like you have to keep bringing these things up. You can't say it once and think it's done.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, that's so true. And you know what's interesting is like it's almost like you need that structure. It's kind of back to the choreography. You really need it. And it wasn't until I probably had done, we said kickball change, but done kickball change like 15 times, and I'm like, okay, kickball change twist or whatever it is to add the sass. It's somehow about that structure gives that. About this piece of like how the repetition and actually, you had mentioned earlier, like the mind-body connection that comes with repetition, and you can see different people's phases as a teacher.
Right, and they are trying to look like the teacher, and it doesn't look like it, but it's happening.
Right.
That mind-body connection is happening, and you have to just keep trying, and then eventually it will look like what the rest of the room might be doing, but the only way you can get from here to there is for whatever your body and mind want to do.
Yeah.
Whatever, and it looks like, who knows?
And so it's a lot of it sounds like
and trusting that. It's trusting that,
Trusting the process.
And this long-term goals on choreography. It's like, whoa, that felt really weird in my body.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get there. And just, you know, I believe that that my dancers are going to get there. They are.
Yeah.
And that you just keep showing up, it's going to come. I don't know when.
Right.
But it's gonna.
Yeah. And it's a task. I think there's a task at this studio because there are so many different flavors of movement and so many different types of choreography. I mean, each teacher is creating their very own choreography. Each and they're bringing their own essence, you know? Like you're bringing this playfulness and this bigness and this exuberance. And there's some teachers that are bringing, you know, this grounded, like this different flavor. There's so many different like flavors here. Would you recommend to students for them to be trying different things, different classes, and bringing those to each?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, and also sometimes like you start your week and you're just like, God, I need that earthy energy.
Right.
I am all over the place. So I'm going to go to the teacher that is going to bring that this week.
Right.
And then also, I think it's also good to go to the one that is a little bit uncomfortable for you. Like sometimes it's hard for me to do earthy. I'm up here like, and sometimes that earthy music, even when I bring the earthy into my own classes, I'm like, okay, I just got to get through this 5 minutes of earth, 5 minutes of earth. But it's so good for you to go to those places that are not your natural go-to to balance yourself a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I would even say
it shifts your perspective.
It's so true,
and everything.
Yeah, it's so true, and trying, I think, different forms of dance too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm finding that really exciting about the studio, incorporating different forms of dance and different things. As I'm like, wow, jazz is a huge edge for me. And like, if I go try this class, like, what could it bring to SoulSweat or salsa being a partner form of dance? Like, if I'm doing that, and I find that they all seem to weave together, and that the more variety, I mean, that I attend, that it all kind of weaves in and it contributes to the dance here at the studio, which is really
the more you dance, the more you dance.
Cool. The more you dance, the more you dance. What time is your class?
Wednesdays at 9.
Wednesdays at 9.
Wednesdays at 9.
You can visit Julia Wednesdays at 9.
We're having so much fun on Wednesdays
studio.
at 9.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Bye.
That's fun.